Hello everyone, and welcome to Who Created It and How. Today we're diving into the fascinating story of something we use almost every day, or at least we used to. We're talking about money, specifically the very first coins. Who came up with this brilliant idea, and why? Before coins, people bartered. Imagine trying to trade your chickens for a new pair of sandals. It worked, but it wasn't exactly convenient. What if the sandal maker didn't want chickens? You needed something that everyone agreed had value, something portable, durable, and divisible. This is where the story of coinage begins. Our journey takes us back to the 7th century BC, to a kingdom in western Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. This kingdom was called Lydia. The Lydians were savvy merchants, positioned right at a crucial crossroads of trade between the east and the west. They were dealing with all sorts of people and goods, and the clumsy barter system was slowing them down. They needed a better way to do business. The Lydians had access to a special, naturally occurring metal called electrum. Electrum is an alloy of gold and silver, and it washed down from the mountains into the Pactolus River. It was shiny, rare, and everyone wanted it. At first, they just used lumps of electrum, weighing them out for each transaction, but this was still a bit of a hassle. You had to trust that the merchant scales were accurate and that the metal was pure. This is where the Lydian king stepped in. They decided to standardize these lumps of metal. They started creating small, bean-shaped pieces of electrum of a specific weight. To guarantee their value and authenticity, they stamped them with an official seal. The earliest Lydian coins often featured a lion's head, the symbol of the Lydian royal family. This stamp was basically the king's promise saying, I guarantee this piece of metal weighs what it's supposed to and is of a certain quality. And just like that, the world's first coin was born. This was a revolutionary idea. It completely transformed trade. Suddenly, you didn't need to carry scales or worry about the purity of the metal. The king's stamp took care of all that. This made transactions faster, easier, and more reliable. A merchant from Greece could trade with a merchant from Persia using these Lydian coins, and both would know exactly what they were worth. It was the world's first universal currency. So while we don't know the exact name of the person who first stamped a piece of electrum, we credit the kingdom of Lydia, likely under the reign of King Aliates, for creating the first standardized coinage system around 600 BC. This innovation wasn't just about making shopping easier. It fueled economic growth on an unprecedented scale. From Lydia, the idea spread like wildfire. The neighboring Greeks saw how effective these coins were and quickly adopted the practice. But they took it a step further. The Lydian electrum coins had a problem. The ratio of gold to silver was inconsistent. Two coins of the same weight could have different intrinsic values. It was the son of Aliates, the legendary king Croesus, who is credited with refining the system. Croesus, whose name became synonymous with immense wealth, figured out how to separate the gold from the silver. Around 550 BC, he introduced the world's first bimetallic currency system, issuing pure gold coins and pure silver coins. The gold coins were called crucids, and they featured the heads of a lion and a bull facing each other. Now, you had a clear standard of value. A gold coin was worth more than a silver coin, and the system was much more stable and predictable. The Greeks loved this idea and ran with it. Each city-state, or polis, began minting its own unique coins. These weren't just pieces of money, they were miniature works of art and powerful symbols of identity. The Athenian coin, for example, famously featured the owl, a symbol of the goddess Athena and wisdom. The coins of Corinth had Pegasus, the winged horse. These images were like tiny billboards, advertising a city's power, its patron gods, and its culture to the entire ancient world. When you held a coin from Athens, you were holding a piece of its identity. As Alexander the Great later conquered vast territories, he spread the Greek concept of coinage from Egypt all the way to India. He standardized the currency across his massive empire, which made trade and administering his lands much easier. His coins, often featuring his own portrait, set a new trend. Rulers began putting their own faces on coins, a powerful form of propaganda that declared, "I am the one in charge." Then came the Romans. The Romans were masters of organization and engineering, and they applied this to their currency system. The Roman denarius became one of the most stable and widely used coins in history, lasting for centuries. Roman coins were mass-produced on an industrial scale and were used to pay soldiers, build roads and aqueducts, and facilitate trade across their sprawling empire. They were also a news source. When a new emperor came to power or a major battle was won, the news was spread by minting new coins with new imagery and inscriptions. In a world without internet or television, coins were a vital way to communicate with the public. Meanwhile, in the East, China had developed its own form of currency completely independently. Long before the Lydians, the ancient Chinese used cowrie shells as a form of money, but as their economy grew, they needed something more substantial. They began creating bronze objects in the shape of the things they used to barter with, like spades and knives. These are known as spade money and knife money. They were a bit clunky, but they were a step towards standardized currency. Around the 3rd century BC, the first emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, who is also famous for the Terracotta Army, decided to standardize everything, including the currency. He abolished the old spade and knife money and introduced a round copper coin with a square hole in the middle. This design was incredibly practical. The round shape made them easy to handle, and the square hole allowed them to be strung together, making it easy to carry large amounts. This basic design was so successful that it remained the standard for Chinese coinage for over 2,000 years, well into the 20th century. So we have two major independent inventions of coinage: the stamped metal coins of Lydia in the West and the cast bronze coins of China in the East. Both solutions were born out of the same problem: the need for a reliable and convenient medium of exchange to support a growing economy. The evolution didn't stop there, of course. For centuries, the value of a coin was tied to the value of the metal it contained. This is called commodity money. But eventually, this led to paper money, and then to what we have today, fiat money. Fiat money is currency that a government has declared to be legal tender, but it isn't backed by a physical commodity. Its value comes from the trust and faith we have in the government that issues it. And now, we're in the midst of another monetary revolution with the rise of digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. It's amazing to think that this entire complex global financial system can trace its roots back to those ancient Lydian merchants who just wanted a simpler way to sell their goods. They took a lump of river metal, stamped it with a lion, and in doing so, they changed the world forever. So the next time you tap your card or click to pay online, take a moment to remember the journey of money. From bartering chickens to shiny electrum lumps to the lion-stamped coins of Lydia. It's been a long and incredible story. Thanks so much for watching Who Created It and How. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of money, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next exploration. See you in the next video.